Wesley went to the door and jerked it open. The constant ringing he had listened to on his way up from the basement finally stopped. The butler must have been out grocery shopping. "What the fuck, guys? Lay off the doorbell." Adam took a step back, waving his hands in front of him. "Whoa, Hulk!" "Hell yeah, man!" Zack put his fist out for a bump. Wesley gave him one and looked down. His tank top was plastered to him from his workout and run. He was still getting used to the shrinking stomach and increased lightness on his feet. It was amazing what a few weeks of working out accomplished. He turned away and walked in with them following. Zack doubled back and shut the door Mark had left half open. "What are you all up to?" Wesley picked up his glass of ice water and took a drink. "We're playing in the indie game tournament," Zack said. "Have fun. I'm going to Jennifer's MMA class with her tonight. They're having a party." Mark and Adam sat on the couch. Zack stood with his arms crossed. They all looked at each other before he spoke. "Don't you remember?" Wesley swallowed and looked at the condensation running down the side of the glass for the span of 2 heartbeats. "I sort of forgot all about that." He set his glass down on the coaster. "You've been forgetting about a lot of things recently." Mark put his feet up on the coffee table. "How about inviting us over for dinner on a more regular basis?" "But my mom says she's happier having less dishes and work." "Fuck your mom." Everyone swung their heads to Adam. Adam shrugged. "What? We have needs. It's up to those with more to do for those with less." Mark nodded. "He's got a point. But it's a stupid point," Wesley said. "Don't drag others down. Lift your ass up." "You never said that when you invited us over before." Adam looked over his shoulder towards the kitchen. "Is your mom here? I need some water." Wesley looked at him for a moment, then to Mark, who was smiling, then to Zack, glaring at Adam. He looked back through the trio before responding. "What the fuck are you thinking to insult my mom and then expect her to get you water?" Adam laughed. "Hell, she's the maid too, right?" Wesley's face turned red. "Get out of here before I kick the shit out of you." "You and Zack need anger management." Mark looked down, picking at his fingernails. "You have issues." "You too." Wesley marched in place, stabbing his finger at the front door. "Get the fuck out of here until you can show some respect." He paused and shoved his finger first in Mark's and then Adam's faces. "And I know it was you fuckers at the falls." Adam stuck his nose in the air so that the ceiling light reflected off the fading bruises Zack had left behind. "Of course we weren't out there. Why would you think that?" Wesley pointed at Zack. "Because someone got drunk 2 days ago and told me." Zack shrugged and rolled his eyes, whistling. "That was another Adam. He got confused." Wesley pointed at the direction of the door. "Out, out, out!" Adam stood and pulled his skinny jeans up so that he showed the world moose knuckles. "I won't be back for dinner until I get an apology." "Yeah, man, you can't be treading on us poor folks," Mark said. Wesley trembled with rage. His face grew so red he looked like a volcano about to explode. "You're poor because you don't work." He pointed at Adam. "And you're poor because you're a forever subsidized student wasting time towards a useless degree instead of developing real-world job skills, like literally anything else." Adam snorted and opened the front door. "It sounds like you'd rather work than have rich parents. Maybe that would have been for the best." Mark shook his head, following Adam out the door and leaving it wide open. "I'm starting to wonder why I hang around them." Zack scratched the side of his head and adjusted his hat. "I also think you are." Wesley looked at his watch. "I gotta jump in the shower, man. I'm sorry about the game tonight." "No problem. I'll catch you next time." He closed the door on his way out. Wesley brushed mud from Mark's shoes off the coffee table and headed to his room. "You guys are fucking assholes." Zack started his truck and backed out of the parking spot while they buckled in. "Where do you want dropped off? I'm going fishing." "What do you mean, dropped off?" Mark stuck his head between the front seats. "Yeah, drop you off. Where?" Adam crossed his arms. "I can't go home. My parents will expect me to do yard work or something." Mark nodded. "Me too." Zack shrugged. "That's not my problem. I'll drop you off at Wally World. You can get yourself something to eat there, and it's close enough to walk home." Adam scoffed. "Spend my money on food? Walk a mile in this weather? Are you nuts?" Zack sighed and kept driving. Mark and Adam pleaded with him all the way to the shopping center. They cited economic hardship, medical frailty, and a repressive government as reasons for them not to do for themselves. When that failed, they spoke to civic virtue and doing for those that have less. They had resorted to blaming their failures on a broke economic system that didn't distribute wealth evenly and hounded people for debt by the time Zack was pushing Adam out the passenger door in the parking lot. He sped away as they shouted and waved middle fingers. Mark shoved his hands in his pockets as Zack's truck was lost to him in the traffic. "This blows." Adam flipped sweaty hair out of his face. Let's go inside for something to drink. I don't have any money. Me neither. Mark sighed. Maybe Zach has a point. About what? This. Mark pulled his front pockets inside out. We're broke bitches. Speak for yourself. You just said you didn't have enough for a drink. I'm not broke. I'm just different. Now you're broke and wrong. Speak for yourself, poor boy. Mark groaned and looked to the front door while he whirled. There's water fountains. Let's go. But that's city. Adam smacked his dry lips, licking the sweat gathered around them. Hold up. They entered, flapping their shirts so the air conditioning would cool them faster. Long lines of people stood at the checkout stations. Some of them fruitily stabbed at the touchscreens of self-service lines while cussing, and others looked blankly at the cashier as they waited for their supervisor light on. As always, the energy of the place was as slow and labored as an obese woman giving birth. Mark and Adam headed towards the fountains, but had to wait while several kids played in the water until their parents exited the bathrooms and led them away. They drank their fill and used the restroom before they ambled back to the door. Most of the sweat had dried by the time they walked back out the front doors to be blinded by the sun. They blinked, moving to avoid people piling off a white school bus stopped in front of the door. Only after the majority of them had entered the store did Mark and Adam notice the writing on the side of the bus. The State Independent School of Gifted Retards. Wesley spun the wheel to put him on the 4-lane and punched the gas. It was the first time he had had to meet Jennifer somewhere and he was running late, but didn't want to text just yet. Maybe he could make it. There was still 10 minutes for him to go 15 miles, most of it on the highway. He sped as much as he dared on the cop-ridden road, blowing through yellow lights as they turned red and passing on the right. Miles melted away. A long line of traffic was backed up at the turn he needed, so he passed it and spun around in the median to get in front. The light changed behind him, letting them loose in his direction as he got his beat-up, overpriced car to speed again. A few more lights and miles later, he made a right into a shopping plaza as the last minute counted down. He seen Jennifer's car parked with several others in front of an MMA training center with chain-link fence in the windows and found an empty spot next to her. The front door was propped open and he could hear dull slaps of fist on a punching bag from inside when he reached the sidewalk. He started to knock, unsure if he should step into a private party of fighters unannounced, but Jennifer waved to him from a group of women standing at a table with platters of food. He straightened his back against an almost irresistible urge to slouch in the presence of a dozen men in shorts and tees with bulging muscles. One of them had a pair of gloves on and was pounding on a cylinder-shaped bag while others watched. Half the women at the table with Jennifer were just as well defined and were dressed in workout clothing. The smell of stale sweat and muscle rub filled the air as he moved past the doorway. Jennifer looked at the watch on her wrist. Right on time, Wesley smirked. And why wouldn't I be? Jennifer shrugged. Because I wondered why you would be. Touché. Who's your friend? The short, stocky blonde took a bite of ham she had rolled around a carrot. That's Wesley. She twitched her eyebrows. The one I told you all about. The blonde looked at a taller, thinner blonde next to her and then back at Jennifer. That's him? They all intoned together. Wesley felt his face turn red and he tried to find stuff on the walls to look at. Yes, that's him. The three of them leaned towards each other and giggled for several seconds until Wesley cleared his throat. Am I here to have the shit kicked out of me by a random brute for your enjoyment? Well, not just mine, but that doesn't start for a few minutes. Jennifer dunked a celery stick in a bowl of ranch. Grab a snack. She bit off half the celery and chewed in time to punches hitting the bag. The blows stopped when she swallowed. Woo! They all turned to the man that had stopped punching on the bag to bare his chest and rip off his tank top, which he proceeded to tear to shreds and fling to the floor. Veins stood out so far on his shaved head that sweat pulled behind them. Wesley spun to Jennifer. What the hell did you get me into? She patted his arm. Oh, don't worry, he's playing, and you probably won't get his number. Probably? And we have sparring equipment to wear. Jennifer pointed to a pile of headgear and larger than normal gloves on the floor next to the ring at the rear of the building. Wesley looked at the man with twice his muscle mass and then back at Jennifer. But... He swallowed and took a salami roll filled with cream cheese from the table. I guess I'll find out if my dad has good insurance. Jennifer stepped in close and bumped Wesley with her thigh. You never know who you'll get. What's that supposed to mean? The tall blonde pulled at a long silk cord draped around her neck. Men have their offhand tied if they draw a fight against a woman. Wesley looked back at the men, who were smiling and giving him a thumbs up as they watched him in amusement. "You expect me to hit a woman?" The short blonde gave him a light punch in the arm and smiled, revealing a missing tooth. Then she raised an arm and popped up a bicep that was twice the size of Wesley's. "Don't worry about hitting me. Worry about me hitting you." The tall blonde ruffled the shorter blonde's hair. "Stacy broke her college weightlifting record last year. Good luck if you draw her." Wesley looked at Jennifer. "You need to tell me the rules before I come out with you next time." "Oh, it won't be too bad." "Is that not too bad, like being beat down and robbed in an alley to have the thief only take your money and leave your wallet?" Jennifer looked at Stacy and the tall blonde and laughed. "Of course not. It's like being beat in a lit alley with the guy helping you walk out afterwards." "I'm expected to walk out of the ring?" Hands clapped, prompting them to turn. "Is everyone ready to have some fun?" A well-built but slim man spun a pair of gloves over his head. The 2 dozen or so people present, including Jennifer, cheered. Wesley managed a feeble clap, but he didn't know if it was for his own ass-kicking or not. The man with the gloves pointed at the tall blonde standing with Wesley's group. "Cat, do you have the tie?" Everyone laughed while she took it to him, including her. "Hello. To those new tonight, I'm Hector, and this is my shop. Everyone that put their names in the hat will be drawn to fight. Males that get matched with females have to tie their secondary hand and can't wear headgear." He reached into a bag at his waist. Wesley leaned closer to Jennifer, whispering, "Couldn't someone get hurt without headgear?" Jennifer shrugged and said, "Sometimes," as Hector called out the first 2 names. "Stacy and Valerie." Stacy started to the ring. "Oh yeah, I want a piece of that bitch tonight." "What'd you say, tramp?" Valerie, a bald mountain of a woman, turned and shoved a smaller man out of the way, sending him flying with his carrot stick in one hand and mostly empty cup in the other. Stacy flipped her off. "I said your new dildo looks like a 2-liter bottle." Valerie growled and charged as people opened a path for her. Stacy was still laughing when she took a shoulder to the midsection and was driven into the mat in front of the snack table. The 2 women rolled around on the floor, elbowing and punching as they tried for various submission moves. Valerie's left eye started to swell up within seconds. Wesley stood in amazement as everyone cheered the fighters on. He cleared his throat and leaned closer to Jennifer. "Why do they hate each other so much?" Jennifer rolled her eyes and looked over the table for something else to munch on. "They do this shit once a month. They would have fought tonight even if their names hadn't been pulled." Kat took a drink from her cup and laughed. "And they'll probably fuck later." Wesley nodded. Right." They watched the 2 men roll around on the floor for another minute before Stacy wrapped an arm around Valerie's neck. Valerie arched her back and tried to keep Stacy's legs from locking around her waist. She failed, and Stacy slowly forced her forearm deeper until she sank the choke in and Valerie tapped out. They rolled over and helped each other up before walking up to the front of the group with blood leaking from their noses. Wesley shook his head. "What the hell just happened?" "A fight," Jennifer said. "Are they all like that?" "Sometimes." "Christ. Are you scared?" Wesley stiffened, looking Jennifer in the face and then at Kat, who eyed him intently for an answer. "Well, no, but, Wesley looked around. "I think I'm outclassed." He held his thumb and forefinger up, widening the gap between them. "A lot." "Don't be silly. You'll be fine." Wesley smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You don't look like you believe me." "I believe you. You just don't sound that confident." "Oh, I'm confident." "Of what?" Hector shouted before Wesley could respond. "The next fighters are Wesley and Jennifer." Wesley's eyes bulged in surprise. "Did you do that?" Jennifer shrugged. "Do what?" She didn't wait for an answer, but grabbed his wrist and pulled him to the ring. "Wow." Mark looked in awe upon the name on the bus. "I didn't know they still used that word." Adam blinked and rubbed his eyes as if the word would change. "Do you think they know what it means?" "Know what means?" Adam and Mark turned to the voice. 3 students from the bus had approached them while they had been distracted. One was in a powered wheelchair with an impressive array of headgear balanced on his shoulders. Another was as wide as he was tall and wore Coke bottle glasses that his crossed eyes swam in. And the third was tall, too thin, and had a protruding Adam's apple. All of them wore white shirts tucked into black slacks and ties. Pocket protectors full of different tools and writing utensils stuck from each of their shirt pockets. "Do you mean independent?" The short, wide one snorted and pushed his glasses up on his nose. Mark looked at Adam and then back at the 3 students. "No, the other word." "Retard!" Mark and Adam jumped back at the outburst from the student in the chair. "What's your deal with a word?" The tall student crossed his arms. Mark turned red under the glare of three accusing stares while the wheelchair-bound student tapped his fingers around the control stick of his ride, rocking side to side. "Well, I don't have a problem with it." He made quotations with his fingers. "What's that supposed to mean, able-body?" The student in the wheelchair nudged the control stick to jump at Mark, who scurried backwards. "Nothing." Mark looked at Adam. "Help me out here." "Well," Adam said, pointing at each of the three students in turn, "you all have been brainwashed by the man, so you keep bowing down to the man. The man wants you to feel limited and not as capable." The tall student pointed at the bus. "Well, yeah, we are. That's sort of what the word means." "But you aren't. Everyone is equal and has same capabilities. You guys just got the shitty end of the stick and your parents didn't cater to you enough." The three students looked at each other and back at Adam. The heavy student snorted and pushed his glasses up on his nose, trying to point both eyes at Adam and failing. "You're with North Ridge Retard Academy, aren't you?" Adam put one hand on his chest in surprise. "Of course I'm not." The tall student leaned forward, staring Adam in the eyes. "You go tell Yancey Supertard Wilson that Independent isn't afraid of the smartest man in the world with Down syndrome." He laughed and stepped back, crossing his arms. "Yeah, you got it coming." The heavy student snorted and pushed his glasses up. "Move it, able-body," the student in the wheelchair said. He looked at Adam's legs and back up at his face, smiling wide and revealing braces attached to teeth that took off at every angle. "It'd be a shame if such healthy knees got crippled." Adam shuffled to the side. "Take it easy, man. That brainwash is coming through pretty strong. I'm not with anyone." "Good try," the heavy student sniffed. "You almost had us fooled. Bugger off and tell Yancey we're coming for him at the next science fair." The student in the wheelchair goosed his controller and made Adam jump back, laughing as he turned at the last minute to scoot by. The other two followed him through the sliding doors as they laughed with him. "Man," Mark cleared his throat, "I think I'm out of here." "What?" Adam pointed at the bus. "We have to save them. This is a cause worth fighting for." Mark shook his head. "It's not about that. If they," he nodded at the bus, "can set goals and stay focused, then maybe I can." Adam shrugged. "So? You don't have to, though. That's the sweet part of the deal. Someone will, so you just mooch off them." "I know I don't have to. Just as I didn't have to keep collecting a monthly check after I turned 18, just as I didn't have to keep renewing my food stamp card, and just as I don't have to go beg money from churches when everyone else has ran out." Mark looked down at his feet and pulled his pants leg up and dropped them back down. "Zach is right. I need to get my shit together." "You don't mean get a job?" Mark nodded. "Now hit Darryl up. He wanted me to lay down some beatboxing tracks for his band to use and mentioned something about a DJ spot." Adam laughed. "You'll be over it by morning, wanting to get high and do nothing." Mark looked at the bus, straightening his hat so that it pointed backwards instead of at a severe angle. He pulled his pants up and cinched his belt before he turned back to Adam. "No," he shook his head, "I doubt that. The do-nothing part, anyway. Getting high is a motherfucker, though." Adam shrugged. "Whatever. You can help me make signs when you come over tomorrow." "Signs?" "Yeah." Adam pointed at the bus. "We'll try to get a rally queued up for it right away." "Rally? Queued up?" "Yeah, each bandwagon only lasts a month or two. Sometimes a real controversial one will last longer." "Bandwagon?" Mark tilted his head. "What the fuck are you talking about?" Adam suddenly stood straight up, looking around with his eyes wide. Nothing. I can't talk about the group." Mark chuckled and walked away. "Good luck with those signs." "See you tomorrow." "No, you won't," Mark said without a pause in his step. "Yes, I will," Adam shouted at Mark's retreating form. "Nope." "You better be. The cause needs free labor." Mark held a middle finger up over his shoulder. Adam stuck both middle fingers in the air. "Fuck you too, you deplorable fascist. Don't diddle any kids." Mark's exasperated groan was audible from across the quarter of the parking lot. Adam stamped his feet several times before he turned back to the bus. Righteous anger overwhelmed him. He had no job to soak up his time, no will or scope of mind to pursue an art, no driving force of survival. The state and his parents supplied his needs, freeing his time to do whatever, giving him time to push his opinion on other people. He stared at the bus like this. Someone had to do something. "Save the retards!" He cupped his hands over his mouth. "Save the retards!" An overweight woman with her belly hanging out the bottom of her shirt stopped her buggy full of Doritos and Diet Pepsi. Her eyes grew wide and she fumbled with her purse. What's wrong with the tards? She finally found her $600 smartphone and got it unlocked. Do I need to call 911? Adam looked at her Barney t-shirt before he raised an eyebrow to her face. They're being called retards. The woman squinted at the bus and then turned back to Adam. But I don't need to telephone the popo? Adam tilted his head and looked up at the sky, scratching his chin. I don't think I can call the cops. The woman put her phone back in her purse. Good. Never could find the lever on this damn thing. She walked off, pushing her cart. Adam watched until she had crossed the walkway before he started bouncing up and down on his toes, pointing at the bus. Save the retards! Save the retards! Save the retards! He bounced around, pointing at startled people walking in and out of Wally World. More than one person had to stop their cart to keep from hitting him, throwing glares and snarls his way. He ignored them, pointing, shouting, and bouncing, right into the traffic lane. A 20-year-old Oldsmobile careened towards him through the walkway, making him feel offended. Pedestrians had the right-of-way. He pointed at Yale painted on the pavement. Save the retards and slow down, fascist! Adam was about to repeat himself when the front of the car flipped him end over end. He crashed to the pavement, still trying to yell but only gasping. His hip and knee hurt so bad he couldn't push himself up. He groaned and reached out to the long-haired, dirty man stepping out of the car that had hit him. Panic froze the old junkie with the same force as the 10 milligrams of fentanyl that had killed his brother a month before, all because his heroin dealer had gotten cheap, whom his brother had met because his pill dealer had gotten busted, that he had found after getting addicted from prescriptions handed out by doctors, all because he was willing to take anything gave to him. Adam screamed from pain and grabbed his hip. Call a doctor. Don't you care about your fellow human beings? Why are you just standing there? The man's eyes widened. He jumped back into the passenger seat, yelling, Drive, woman, drive! They'll take our clean needles! The car sped off as pedestrians jumped away. Once the car was safely out of range, they gathered around Adam with their cell phones held up for selfies, with him begging in the background. Wesley looked at the length of cloth that tied his left wrist to his waist. He couldn't pull that arm more than an inch or two from his body, much less catch himself should he fall. This doesn't seem safe. His words were muffled from the guard filling his mouth. Jennifer laughed and knocked her fists together. Don't be silly. We do this all the time. Wesley looked around at the people gathered close to the sides of the ring. Missing teeth showed in smiles, noses were crooked from healed breaks, and black eyes were still fading. I can see that, and it doesn't seem safe. Jennifer grinned. Don't you want to fight? Wesley looked at the smirking faces of those glued to the sides of the ring, clearing his throat. Not really. Go! Hector rang the bell. So what do? Wesley turned back to Jennifer as her fist rushed towards his face. His nose flattened while his head whipped backwards and his vision turned blurry. He stumbled over his feet as they tangled underneath him. His balance returned in time to catch Jennifer's follow-up hook in the chin. Strobe lights filled his vision as the mat seemed to fly at his face and smash into him. He stared at the canvas flooring while Hector rang the bell again and again and again as Jennifer danced around him. Something wet trickled from his nose, dripping red onto the mat, as he crawled to the edge where bystanders pulled him from under the ropes and helped him stand, stripping off his equipment. Everyone clapped and laughed until he could hold himself upright. His head was still spinning when Hector waved the bag full of names in the air. Jennifer poked him in the ribs as she walked up. Sorry I was so rough on you. Cat bet me 20 I couldn't take you down within the first round. That's a week of lunch for me. Wesley touched the blood that had ran down to his upper lip with his tongue. Glad to help, I guess. They walked to the back of the group as the first of the next two names were called. Are you up for it next month? Wesley's eyes got wide and he shook his head. I need time before I attempt that again. Jennifer winked. You mean play less video games and play with life more? Wesley grinned. Something like that. Jennifer slapped his diminishing gut. Wesley laughed as he caught a drop of falling blood from his nose. I need to get something for this. Yeah, we should get going. I have school and work tomorrow and you have to recover. Wesley caught another drop of blood in his cupped palm. And I'd prefer not to bleed in front of people. They're used to it. I'm not. Jennifer shrugged. You'll be once you're around here enough. I'm not so sure I want to get used to that. Jennifer jabbed him in the ribs with her elbow. Are you a pussy? Wesley shook his head. Not for much longer if I am. They looked at each other and smiled as they waved goodbye and left the building.